Welcome to my channel. Today we will be reading from the r/no sleep subreddit. So let's jump into Story 3, Room 404. It was my first night working at the Bayview Hotel, and I had just finished showing a family of 5 their room when an elderly woman approached me. "Excuse me," she said. "Which room is the little girl staying in?" Confused, I asked which little girl she meant, but she didn't answer. She just pointed down the hallway. I told her that no child was staying with the family I had just shown to their room, and she seemed surprised. "Oh, well, then I must be mistaken," she said and walked away. I chalked it up to just another weird guest and headed back to the lobby for my shift. The Bayview Hotel wasn't anything special. It was a dated 3-story building that saw better days. But it was a good place to start my career as a hotel manager. I was excited to finally have a job that would pay for my college tuition. I still had 1 year left and I needed all the money I could get. A few hours later, I was getting ready to lock up for the night when the same elderly woman from before approached me. "You wouldn't happen to know a little girl staying here, would you?" I replied, "Ma'am, if you're trying to find a child to molest, you should really try a different tactic because that one doesn't work." Her face hardened and she said, "I'm looking for my granddaughter. She's only 9 years old. We came here for a family vacation and she wandered off. I've looked everywhere for her, but I can't find her anywhere. Do any of your guests match the description of a little girl?" I felt bad for snapping at her. "I'm sorry. I thought you were trying to take advantage of the open bar and I didn't want you to get too drunk. I'll check the rooms for you," I said. She thanked me and went out to the courtyard to wait for me. I checked every single room on the first floor, but there was no child anywhere. I even checked the closet under the assumption that the girl had fallen asleep in there, but there was nothing. When I got back to the lobby, the woman was nowhere to be seen. I shrugged it off and figured that I'd find the girl sooner or later. Little did I know how wrong I was. Every day for the next week, the woman would come to the front desk asking if anyone had found her granddaughter. Each time I told her that I had no luck, she would sigh and walk off in search of her granddaughter somewhere else. Honestly, it was kinda creepy. Every day at the same time she would ask about the girl, and every day I would tell her that I had no new information. Then, one day while I was doing the evening news report, they announced that a young girl had gone missing in the area and the police were asking for help finding her. The girl's name was Samantha, and she was 9 years old, the same age as the woman's granddaughter. I immediately went to the break room to look for the woman so I could tell her that her granddaughter was missing. But when I got there, she was sitting calmly at a table drinking water from a glass. "Ma'am, I think you need to come see this," I said. She followed me back to the lobby where the evening news was playing on TV. When she saw the announcement, her eyes widened in horror. She stood there staring at the screen, frozen like a statue. I don't know what I expected her to do, but whatever it was, it definitely wasn't what she actually did. She looked at me and in a raspy voice said, "What does this mean?" I swallowed hard and said, "I don't know, ma'am, but I think we should call the police." That's when I noticed that the woman wasn't alone in the break room. There was another man there who was watching us intently. He was tall and skinny with greasy gray hair and a long white beard. His eyes were cloudy and lifeless, like he had already given up on life. "Who are you?" I asked him. "I'm her grandfather," he said. I turned back to the woman and asked, "Why didn't you tell me that before? You could have saved yourself a lot of trouble." "We weren't planning on going to the police," she said. "But why not? I mean, your granddaughter is missing. That's definitely something the police need to know. She's not our granddaughter. And I don't appreciate you accusing us of kidnapping her." The woman cut in. "Well, whose granddaughter is she then?" "That's none of your business," he snapped. "Listen, I'm just trying to help, but if you're not going to tell me the truth, then I can't assist you. Why don't you guys just leave so I can get back to work?" They both stood up. "How dare you treat us this way? We're respectable people, unlike you." The woman spat. "Oh, okay. Well, then maybe you can explain why you're living in a rundown hotel in the middle of nowhere." He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door. "I don't want to hear another word out of you." As they walked away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Those two weirdos didn't belong in this town, and I didn't like the way they were acting. I decided to call the cops on them, but when I dialed the number, the line went dead. Confused, I went out to the parking lot to check the connection. But as soon as I stepped outside, the world around me changed. The street was completely deserted, and the last car had long since driven away. I tried calling the police again, but the line was still dead. I walked back inside to call from a different phone, but every phone in the lobby was dead. I checked the TVs and the internet was down too. I ran to the windows and looked out into the courtyard, but everything was gone. The trees, the flowers, the fountain, even the parking lot. There was nothing there but a big, wide street. I looked back at the front desk and noticed that the bellhop, who hadn't clocked out yet, was talking on a phone. "Hello, excuse me, is there a power outage in this area?" "Yeah, and how long will it last?" "Oh, it's not coming back on." "Great, thanks for letting me know." He hung up the phone and stared at me blankly. "What's going on?" I asked. "I don't know," he replied. "Nope," she said. "But I think I know how we can find out." She walked past me and over to the bellhop. "Can I use the phone, please?" "Sure," he said. She picked up the receiver and dialed a number. "Hello, is this the front desk speaking?" "Yes, I'm calling to report a stolen credit card." "Oh, and I also need to report a missing child. Yes, my granddaughter." "Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Scary Stories. Tonight we have 3 stories for you, so let's just get right into it. Story number 1, Creepy Doll in Attic. It's been 6 months since my boyfriend moved in with me and I still haven't found anything in the attic. My boyfriend Tom tells me it's probably because I'm scared of heights. I just tell him I'm not going up there because I don't want to. The other day, though, he suggested that we get some stuff out of the attic and bring it downstairs to get rid of. So I agreed. But once we got up there, I started feeling sick to my stomach. All the boxes were covered in dust and cobwebs and there was a musty odor in the air. Then I heard something. I stopped and listened. Was it a mouse? A bird? I couldn't tell. We began to walk further into the attic. The temperature dropped by several degrees and I felt a sudden urge to get out of there. But then I saw it. A rocking chair was moving slowly back and forth in the corner of the room. I called out, "Hello, is anyone there?" Silence. Neither Tom nor I spoke as we made our way toward the rocking chair. I was frozen with fear, unsure of what to do or say. As we got closer, I could see that there was a doll sitting in the chair. It was an antique porcelain doll with cracked paint and dirty, tangled hair. It was beautiful in a strange sort of way. I remember thinking that it reminded me of Annabelle, but I knew that wasn't possible because we had already checked the internet and there were no reports of any haunted dolls in our town. It was only when we turned to leave that I noticed something odd. The doll was facing away from us and its back was to the wall. That meant that someone would have had to have carried it over to that spot to place it there. Because there were no windows or doors, I asked Tom if he wanted to move the doll, and he said he didn't, which I was grateful for. We left the doll where it was and went back downstairs. Now, every time I go to the attic, I take a flashlight with me, and every time I do, the doll is in a different position. Sometimes it's sitting with its back to the window, and sometimes it's even turned around to face me. I've become convinced that there is a ghost haunting our attic, but no matter how much I try to convince Tom of that, he won't believe me. He insists that it's my imagination and that I need to stop letting my mind run wild. Story number 2, Run, Don't Look Back. This happened in 2003. My best friend and I were sophomores in high school and we lived in a small town in Nebraska. One evening, we decided to drive out to an abandoned farmhouse on the edge of town. We parked a safe distance away and walked up to the porch. As we got closer, we could hear what sounded like whispers coming from inside. Of course, we ignored it and continued on to the front door. Once inside, we turned off our flashlights and waited for our eyes to adjust to the darkness. It took a few minutes, but eventually we could make out the outlines of furniture and other objects. Then we started to hear footsteps. Footsteps coming closer. We ran to the nearest bedroom and hid under the bed. Just as we got underneath, we heard the door creak open and a raspy voice say, "Who's here?" We stayed perfectly still and silent as the footsteps came closer. The footsteps stopped right outside the bedroom. Then we heard the sound of a match striking and the rasping voice saying, "Don't hide from me. I know you're here." We didn't move or breathe, and after a few moments we heard the footsteps walking away. We stayed under the bed for what seemed like hours. Finally, we decided to make a run for it. We both ran out the front door and didn't stop until we reached our cars. When we turned back to look at the house, we could have sworn that we saw the shadowy figure of a man standing on the porch, watching us. And story number 3, The Doll in the Closet. When I was 8 years old, my family moved from Chicago to a new house in the suburbs. I shared a room with my younger sister. On the first night in our new home, we were getting ready for bed when my sister noticed a doll in the closet. She was always sensitive to things like that. So, of course, she wanted to throw it in the garbage. I told her that she shouldn't because it might be haunted. She just laughed at me and went ahead with it anyway. After we went to sleep, though, we started hearing scratching noises in the closet. At first, we thought it was mice, but then the noise stopped. In the morning, we opened the closet to find the doll sitting in the middle of the floor. It had its arms outstretched like it was inviting us to come closer. My sister screamed and ran out of the room. I guess she was scared that the doll had crawled out of the closet on its own and was now sitting there waiting for us. Well, my mom walked in just then and told us to stop being silly. She picked the doll up and threw it in the trash where it belonged. That night, though, we started hearing the scratching sounds again, and this time they were coming from the trash can. We were terrified and didn't want to go near it, so we just laid in bed crying. My parents eventually came in and emptied the trash can into a plastic bag. They tied it up and took it out to the curb. Then they came back in and told us to forget about the doll and go to sleep. But that night, instead of scratching, the trash can started to bang against the wall. It wasn't loud enough to wake anyone else up, but it was definitely loud enough to scare the living daylight out of us. We started screaming for our parents, but they didn't come in. Eventually, the banging stopped and we heard what sounded like footsteps walking away. The next morning, we told our parents what we had heard and they laughed it off. My dad said that it was probably just rats and that we should stop making such a big deal out of nothing. But my mom saw how upset we were, so she went out to the curb and got the trash can back. She brought it inside and put it in the basement. She told us that we weren't allowed to go down there because it was dangerous, but that was fine with us. We didn't want to go anywhere near that trash can. For the rest of the night, we heard dragging and banging noises coming from the basement. But we were too scared to tell our parents. All right, guys, those were our scary stories for tonight. If you liked this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more content. Also, if you want to hear more scary stories, check out the playlist. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.